So I planned on making this video in regards to the Patriots beating the Falcons in the Super Bowl, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit, I guess. It's kind of interrelated. There's just been a whole lot of these weird things that keep happening, and I'd rather talk about them a little bit more and show how they're connected to all this stuff I've been talking about, I guess. It really seems like every time I think of something or talk about it, it literally shows up in the media the next day, or there's something that happens that is connected to it. And it's just pretty weird. Like, I watched this movie Birdman just before the Super Bowl and whatnot, and I keep getting these spammed messages on an old post from March 26th, and that actually led me to a guy that they reference in that movie, and I'll get to that as we go along. But it's just, there's so many odd things that are going on. In regards, I'll leave Zachary K. Hubbard. I'll leave a bunch of his links about the Super Bowl because, I mean, basically I can only add a few things. There's a lot of stuff he talks about. It's rigged to the number 25, which it was completely and utterly scripted to the number 25. I even literally just remembered the other day that this season they moved the touchback, or they moved it up to the 25-yard line instead of the 20-yard line. So interesting. And then the Super Bowl's on 2-5, and the AFC got their 25th win in the Super Bowl. The Patriots came back from down 25 points. Matt Ryan even fumbled the ball. The Patriots got the ball on the 25-yard line. The Patriots won in overtime when James White, I wrote number 25, but James White, they let us know that he just turned 25 years old just 3 days before the Super Bowl, or 2 days before the Super Bowl. I mean, just go listen to it. Go listen to the overtime. They make sure to tell you that it's going to start on the 25-yard line. They tell you that James White just turned 25 years old. Even if you go to Facebook, there's been the big old people talking about how the Super Bowl's rigged or scripted or whatever without numbers. They're just showing you the thing where it popped up and it said the Patriots win the Super Bowl with a touchdown. When they showed that, the Patriots were even on the 25-yard line. They mentioned 25 a whole bunch in the game, too, if you listen to the announcers. The Patriots also won by 6 points. 6 in gematria equals 25, right? Gematria, the practice of coding letters in coding numbers into words and phrases and whatnot. So S would break down to 1. S is the 19th letter. 1 plus 9 equals 10. And then I is the 9th letter. It doesn't have to be breakdown. So we got 10 plus 9. And then X is the 24th letter. 2 plus 4 is 6. So 10 plus 9 plus 6, 25. If you don't know what gematria is, that will be the first link I leave in the description. The how-to gematria video. Tom Brady even got his 25th career playoff win by winning the Super Bowl. And it was also his 34th game in the playoffs or whatever, and the Patriots won with 34 points. And if you go back and look at the opening drive of the game, the Patriots started, of course, on the 25-yard line because of a touchback, and then they went 9 yards on the drive. So literally it was 3 plays for 9 yards. Talked about how 39 also was significant. Tom Brady was 39 years old. Played in NRG Stadium. NRG equals 39. Super Bowl LI. L breaks down to 3. I is 9. 39. Lots of 39. But anyway, since they got 9 yards from the 25, they got to the 34-yard line, right? The 25 and 34. Tom Brady got his 25th career playoff win, and then he won the game with 34 points on his 34th career playoff game. It's even the 97th season of the NFL, and the 25th prime number is 97. Also, when Matt Ryan fumbled the ball on the 25-yard line, number 97 of the Patriots was the one who recovered the ball. Belichick in gematria equals 97. If you go back and watch my videos in regards to the first and the last and whatnot, I talked a lot about the Packers and how it was connected to the year 1997 And it was also connected to ties. And, of course, we get the first tie ever in the Super Bowl because the Cleveland Indians lost in Game 7 this year, and there was also 2 ties in the NFL. And the last time there was 2 ties in the NFL was in 1997, and the Cleveland Indians lost in Game 7 of the World Series that year too. Also, I've covered a whole lot in regards to the death of my uncle on January 14th, and how a whole bunch of stuff was connected to the number 114. Tie in gematria equals 114. If you go clear back to the Hoboken train wreck, where I was pretty sure the Indians and the Cubs were going to be in the World Series, it was all in regards to the number 114. Tie equals 114. There was 114 people injured. The Cubs ended up winning Game 7, and they got their 114th win of the season, in their 114th season being called the Cubs. I even mentioned all this weird stuff that kept happening when I was listening to the gematria effect, and then also all this Nirvana symbolism kept happening. I was looking at a word, and then Zach said the exact same word that I was looking at the exact same time I looked at the word. And everything about Nirvana, tons of 114 in regards to it. Kurt Cobain equals 114. Dave Grohl born on January 14th. Novel Selleck equals 114. So just interesting. It was the first tie ever in a Super Bowl. I mentioned a whole lot in regards to ties. I talked about the Packers in the 97 season, which syncs back up to this 25. And also, I said I wasn't for sure who was going to win. I just thought because of the number 10, 12, that was what was really making me think it was the Falcons that were going to win. And so whatever, no big deal. And just please don't dismiss what I'm saying. If you go back and follow what I'm saying, it all still exists. It just reminds me of last season, I was talking about the Royals winning the World Series, and I was talking about how the Royals and the Mets were super connected to Pope Francis and the royal family and whatnot, And then the Royals won, and then in the college football championship, Alabama beat Clemson, and Clemson's from South Carolina. And the Carolinas are named after King Charles, who was the king during the English Civil War. If Queen Elizabeth dies, her son will become King Charles III. So then we had Clemson from South Carolina lose in the college football championship. Then we had the Carolina Panthers lose in the Super Bowl. Then we had North Carolina lose to Villanova. Then we later had the Cavaliers win, and a Cavalier is a follower of King Charles. And then we had Coastal Carolina win in the College World Series. So I was completely on with what I was talking about. I just didn't get the picks right. And there's a whole lot more that goes along with the number 85 and Back to the Future as well, such as the Royals hadn't won since the year 1985, and they actually won on the day Back to the Future 3 comes to an end. There was a bunch of 85 in the college football national championship, like the quarterback wearing the wristband with 85. The total score was 85. The Super Bowl was super coded up to the 85 Bears. The college basketball championship, Villanova and North Carolina. Villanova last won since in 1985. And there was a whole bunch of stuff with Patrick Ewing and how it synced up to Allen Iverson, but not going to keep going on that, I guess. Just wanted to point out that the things that I was talking about and the themes that I was talking about, just please don't discredit them, because I guarantee they're still connected to what is coming up in the media, what is going to be coming in upcoming films, what is going to be coming in the next sports championships and whatnot. I guarantee some of the stuff that I was talking about is somehow going to be interrelated to that. Even, I saw this article too, on the day of the Super Bowl, we got this article, Lost Continent Found in the Indian Ocean. And the article even says, Forget Atlantis, scientists uncovered evidence of ancient lost continent under the Indian Ocean, blah, 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 And I made a huge video in regards to the Falcons and how it tied into Atlantis and Horus and Ra and the Eye of Horus and whatnot in regards to Lady Gaga. And this article came out on CNN on that day, but the story was actually on other sites, like on like February 1st or something like that. So I wish I would have seen it on a different site, you know, because they were telling us forget Atlantis, you know, and I mean Atlantis, Atlanta. But anyway, let's get into some of the stuff that I wanted to talk about because, well, I guess I just haven't had enough time. I had to work like a ton of hours this week. I had other stuff going on. I had band practice every Sunday, or for the most part every Sunday. We practice at like 11 in the morning until, who knows, 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So we got done with band practice. I came home. I was already behind on the Super Bowl on the DVR. And whatever. I wanted to make a video in regards to the Creighton game the day before because it made me think that possibly I was wrong in what I was thinking in regards to the Falcons. Because the Creighton lost, my uncle died at Creighton, and there was all this 22 stuff, and my uncle died 22 days before the Super Bowl. And then in the Simpsons episode that I talked about a whole lot, there was the Simpsons episode on October 9th called The Town. And it came out 119 days before the Super Bowl. It was Tom Brady's first game back after the suspension. A whole bunch of other stuff in regards to it. But basically, a big deal in regards to my uncle giving me this Dan Marino jersey. And you have to follow what I'm saying. I'm not going to try to re-explain all of it. But he gave me this Dan Marino jersey. It was synced up to the Falcons winning The Simpsons said the Falcons won the Super Bowl, and the only episode that Dan Marino was in, and that was Super Bowl 33. But the Falcons, though, lost Super Bowl 33. They didn't win. And that same day, Family Guy, the very first ever episode of Family Guy aired. The same day the Falcons lost in the Super Bowl. Family Guy in Gematria equals 119. And that Family Guy episode opens up with a skit about the Brady Bunch, right? Tom Brady, the Brady Bunch. I covered a whole bunch of stuff in regards to the Brady Bunch, syncing up to the numbers of the episodes of Family Guy that I have been talking about when following these two teams and whatnot. Anyway, that Simpsons episode was Season 10, Episode 12, and I talked about how the Miami Dolphins, since it was synced up to Dan Marino, when we found out the Colts and the Vikings weren't going to make the playoffs, Houston clinched their division, knocking the Colts out or whatever, and they won with a score of 10-12. A lot like, Season 10, Episode 12. The Miami Dolphins were the only other team to have a game this season. It was when they played Seattle, they lost 10-12 on the first game of the season. And then I kept following it. There was a whole bunch of other 10-12. Dan Marino's birthday, 10 months, 12 days before Ryan Tannehill's birthday. If the Falcons would have won the Super Bowl, they would have been 10-12 in career playoff games or whatever. 10-12. And what's interesting, on Super Bowl Sunday, I actually woke up at 9:13 in the morning. And I wanted to make a video on that, but like I said, I didn't have time to do it. I woke up at 9:13, and then the Falcons are now 9-13 all time in the playoffs. And I kept getting all these spammed messages on this post that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But anyway, I'm sorry for getting so off topic too. It's just so much to remember and so much craziness that's going on with it. Somebody had pointed out in this Creighton game that on ESPN, it got stuck when there was 10-12 remaining in the first half and the score was tied at 22. And I looked it up, and the score was tied at 22 with 10-12. And, 22. My uncle died 22 days before the Super Bowl. Creighton was ranked number 22. Creighton was winning for the majority of the game, and then Xavier came back and beat them. And in that Simpsons episode called The Town, that aired the same day Tom Brady came back after Deflategate, that was all about the Boston Americans coming back to beat Springfield in the Super Bowl. So they made a comeback, just like what happened in the Super Bowl. So, Creighton was ranked number 22. The game was tied 22-22 with 10-12 in the first. Whatever. A bunch of 22. Xavier and Gematria equals 79. The 22nd prime is 79. Creighton played Xavier on January 16th as well, when Xavier was ranked number 22. And this just so happened to be 22 days after the first time I had talked about my uncle. And I mean, he hadn't died at the time, but 22 days after the first time I had mentioned him, on January 16th, Xavier Musketeers equal 116 in Gematria. And the reason all of this stuck out to me was because I kept getting these spammed messages on this old post from March 26th. I talked about Lil Yachty. Let me find it here. Well, I didn't pull it up. Hold on one second. Actually, I did. It's this post right here. So, I just noticed that I kept getting all of these spammed posts. And the reason that it even sticks out is because it wasn't anything new that I did. It was this post right here from March 26th of 2016. And what's funny here yet is that I was talking about this Warriors versus Thunder game on 3-3, the game that Prince attended, which was a really big deal. It even connected to Dan Marino. That was when I actually first started talking about Dan Marino around the draft time, was that Dan Marino lost Super Bowl 19. And the episode of The Simpsons that killed off Prince was Treehouse of Horror number 19. And whatever, a whole bunch more in regards to that. But I was also talking about how I got a coded comment on an old video as well in regards to this post. Just a lot of what I'm talking about now. And I was trying to figure out what exactly was the point. And it was 1 month, 16 days before the day that I put this video out that this post was in regards to. And then the first spammed post that I got on it was from January 16th. So 1 month, 16 days before the post that I'm talking about, I get a spammed message on January 16th, a lot like 116. And I know I was going to mention this in some other video and I kind of skipped over it, but 3/26 last year was the 86th day of the year. If you write out March 26th, it equals 86. And I also, when I went to this video, I had 443 views that YouTube showed me. 443 is the 86th prime number. And I mentioned that if the Patriots win, they will be 8-6 all time against the Falcons. And I put this video out on the 63rd day of the year. If you write out 86, it equals 63. My uncle died age 63. A ton of 63 I talked about in previous stuff. Even the movie Flipper came out in 1963. Even the movie Birds, The Birds came out in 1963, reminding us of the Falcons and whatnot. Also, 63 is a huge number that was synced up to Francis Scott Key. And I talked all about that in regards to Pope Francis's 1189th day as being the Pope was on Donald Trump's birthday. His 70th birthday, Donald J. Trump equals 1189. Key of David equals 1189. And there's 1189 chapters in the King James Bible. And I talked about all that. The next day we got the death of Keon Carpenter, the ex-Atlanta Falcons player. You know, Jesus was supposed to have the key of David. He's the carpenter, Keon Carpenter. Francis Scott Key. So anyway, I guess I mentioned this post. I'll have to go back and look, but I know that I talked about 116 in regards to Obama and Obama nominating Merrick Garland at 11:06 on the 163rd day of the year, or on March 16th and the 163rd day is 6:11. Make America Great Again equals 163. Barack Obama's full name equals 163, I think. Can't remember it all. So, like I said, I'll have to go back and look, but there was the Texas judge that was shot outside of her home on 6 of 2015. It was just before Michigan State played Nebraska, which was super synced up to the number 63 as well, with Sam Foltz and Mike Sadler dying. I even mentioned it here in regards to the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers playing on January 16th. Because as of right now, I think that the Cavaliers are going to repeat. But who knows? Everything that I've thought of since the World Series, everything after that has been the opposite of what I've thought. So who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll keep following the story. That's what I always do. We'll follow the signs, follow the media, try to piece it all together and figure out what is going on. And then eventually, hopefully, we can perfect this, you know? But in regards to basketball even, the Cavs last year came back and won against the Golden State Warriors. Then the Cubs came back and beat the Indians. And now we have the Patriots come back and beat the Falcons in the Super Bowl. So comeback must be something important to what's going on. Anyway, just real quick in this post, they played on January 16th and the Cavs lost by 35 points. And the Warriors got their 35th win of the season. So the Cavs lost by 35. The Warriors got their 35th win of the season. A big deal in the game was that Draymond Green had knocked over LeBron James. And when he did that, the Cavaliers had 35 points. Kevin Durant, who got traded or who signed with the Warriors, wears number 35. LeBron James and Draymond Green both wear number 23. And it's just funny that I took the screenshot with 23 seconds. Not even on purpose, you know. And I also mentioned that Tom Brady equals 35 in gematria. So, you know, just some things I documented that possibly were showing me the Patriots. And I'll get back into this in a second, this post about 326, because I just got another one today even. And it's just really weird that I keep getting spammed on that one little post. I have I don't know how many posts I have, but I mean, just look at them right here. This is just the month of January. You know what I mean? Why in the world am I getting spammed on one post from like 10 months ago or 11 months ago or whatever it is? But I also kept getting messages on this. I made a post on this video a long time ago about the Kurt and Courtney or whatever and the El Duce interview. And this guy right here on that documentary says that he knows who killed Kurt Cobain. It was Alan. And then the very next day, this guy played a show at Al's Bar in downtown Los Angeles. And later that night, he got hit by a train and died. And so he says Alan did it on this documentary. And then he plays at Al's Bar and then supposedly dies the very next day. And I just mentioned, doesn't that seem sort of suspicious, you know? And the reason that I think that is significant is because my uncle's middle name was Alan. And remember how my mom told me the wrong spelling of his name? I talked about how she misspelled his name or whatever. And his name equaled 191 the real way. And he died 191 days before his birthday. He was a 4th degree Knight of Columbus, which is interrelated with the Jesuits, and the Society of Jesus equals 191. I also keep getting, it's just too much. I don't even know how to describe it. There's like 2 main posts right now that I keep getting weird messages on, and they're old posts. And I will get into that as well as we move along here, because it ties into Gabriel, the angel, and this post that they keep talking about is a post that came out on the Jesuit Society of Jesus's anniversary, September 27th. That's when I put the video out. And I just all of a sudden I have been getting weird comments and whatever, trolled comments on this old video. And it just so happened to come out on the Jesuit Order's birthday. And I was talking about Gabe Rygard, the guy from X-Men, right? Gabriel Rygard. So, whatever. I will get into that. I'm sorry. I know these videos are long. They're just so jumbled. I don't even know where to begin with half of them. But what was significant with this Alan thing was literally my uncle's middle name was Alan then. And just before I started talking about my uncle, for some random reason, I thought of my best friend's brother who died in a car wreck, and he died. The guy who ran for help in the accident was my cousin Timmy, who wore the Fred Flintstone outfit to the bar with me when I was dressed as Jesus in like 2010. And my uncle who died, his name was Barney. He married Betty. It was synced up to the Flintstones. His name equaled 166. Flintstones had 166 episodes. They were named after a TV show called The Honeymooners. Honeymooners in Gematria equals 166. But anyway, in regards to my cousin and my best friend's brother, the night before my uncle's funeral, I went to my cousin's house and I started talking about some of this stuff. And I found out that his middle name was Alan. I didn't know what his middle name was before. My best friend's brother, his middle name was also Alan. So my uncle who died, his middle name Alan. And just before this, I was talking about the death of my best friend's brother, whose middle name was Alan. And the guy who ran for help, who was in that wreck with him, his middle name was Alan, right? My cousin. It's just pretty weird. And then all this is about Alan, and I keep getting all these, like, it keeps coming up in my feed or whatever. And I apologize if I don't respond to people's messages too. I get a ton of notifications on my phone, like constantly. And then when I go to it, the message isn't there. So like I can't read the full message when I get it on my phone unless I open it up. And when it opens up, it's not even there. Like it just writes like the first 3 or 4 words. And then when I go there, I don't have a message anymore. So I can't even respond. And then the ones that I can respond to, or that I can see, half the time I can't respond to them. It just doesn't go through. And then sometimes it'll respond if I open up Internet Explorer, but Internet Explorer goes absolutely super slow for some reason, and I hate opening it up. So I apologize if I don't comment back in a timely manner. I've had problems with this since the beginning, since for at least a year or more, I've had problems with responding to people's messages. This documentary that I was even talking about, Kurt and Courtney and Gematria equals 191. Like my uncle's full name, he died 191 days before his birthday. The death of my best friend's brother was all about Saturn, too. Super synced up to Saturn. With my cousin's middle name being Alan, and he even told me how to spell it, his name equals 93. Saturn equals 93. My best friend's brother died in a Saturn, the car. He died on 5/11. Saturn in Jewish Gematria equals 511. So anyway, let's look at this post that I just made. Well, once again, I got to find this one. Hold up. So what this old post was about, I made this post about a weird comment on an old video. A lot like what I'm doing. A lot like what I'm talking about in this video. And I just had this trolled comment randomly, whatever. And it was by A.M. Klein. What's funny, in the video, I even mentioned how someone pointed out that the letters A and M are 1 and 13. And I even point this out in the video, and then I get a trolled comment by somebody named A.M. Klein, right? So just kind of funny. Just wanted to show you what I was talking about. So this post was in regards to a video that I had made about the Warriors and the Thunder game on 3-3, the one that Prince was at. So basically, I went back and I just rewatched that video. I thought maybe that video might have some clues as to what was going on. And I noticed right away, or not right away, but at 11:10 in the video, which is funny because that's my birthday, but right at 11:10, I click over to this, and it says, "We Rise, University of Phoenix." And I've been talking about the Eye of Horus and Atlantis rising and everything else. The Falcons theme was Rise Up and everything else. We Rise, it's even in the red color, red and black, like the Falcons, like the Jesuit order, like the Cardinals. And in this video, or on this part, I even talk about how the night before the game on 3-3, the Thunder blew a 22-point lead against the Clippers, right? And then they played the Warriors on 3-3 of 16, a date numerology of 22, And it reminded me of the Creighton game, 22, my uncle dying 22 days before the Super Bowl. I also mentioned in this video how Monty Williams, one of the coaches for the Thunder, his wife died 22 days before the 3-3 game that I was talking about in this video. I also talked about the Warriors first played the Thunder on February 6th. That was 22 days before the second time they played the Thunder. The Warriors even picked up Anderson Varejao on 2/22, and I mean, just a whole bunch of stuff. And then all the Creighton 22. So I've no doubt what they were trying to do by this post was showing me something, showing me that I was wrong at least. Interesting, too, in regards to 116, at this point right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's even 11:06 p.m. when I was talking about it, so I don't know, possibly nothing, but I also noticed that I had downloaded, you probably can't see it, but right down here, I had downloaded the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, probably because I was going to listen to it at work, because I got paid just to sit there and type stuff and listen to stuff all day. But it says Jack Finney Invasion something, So I'm assuming Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is interesting too because they mentioned that in the movie The Faculty, and of course The Faculty is starring Elijah Wood, who is the guy in Flipper, and I talked about how him and Kiefer Sutherland were synced up to, can't even think of that guy's death that I just covered the other day. So I figured I'd look up Jack Finney, and what really stuck out to me was that he died on November 14th, the 318th day of the year. All of this really began when I noticed from a Gary Shandling article, because they made an article way after he died. And he died on March 24th, which was 318 days before the Super Bowl, but it was also 10 months, 12 days. And 318, this big number connected to the royal family, it's connected to the Jesus theme. Jesus, or the second coming of Jesus, is supposedly mentioned 318 times in the New Testament. And the only time they mention the number 318 in the Bible is they mention it in regards to Dan. And I was talking about the book of Daniel, the tribe of Dan, and Samson, and a whole lot more. Eventually, I will build into how that fits into what I'm talking about here. But him dying on November 14th also significant because that is the day that Prince Charles was born. And I also talked about the Native American theme in regards to the Simpsons episode predicting Donald Trump, and the Native American theme that I noticed with Since the Death of Prince that led me to believe that the Indians were going to be in the World Series. This number is also important to the Family Guy Falconer episode. There's an episode of Family Guy where Peter becomes a falconer, and it's season 11, episode 14, a lot like 1114. And in this post, I had went on to mention how the Simpsons were also connected to this, because the Simpsons episode that aired the same day as this Falconer Family Guy episode, it basically, Ned Flanders punches Homer Simpson in the eye, and then he feels bad, and he has this dream that he is going to hell. And they even mention Houston when he's in hell. Houston in the American League. And then it has Massachusetts marriage, Boston, whatever, kissing, whatever, this guy kissing the crab or whatever. So basically like some weird gay marriage or whatever you want to call it. Bestiality marriage, I guess. Ned Flanders would go crazy over. But also in this hell, and I didn't take a screenshot of it, they have Richard Dawkins. And Richard Dawkins, a big guy who believes in evolution and whatnot. And what's weird about it, and I'll get back to it, but what's weird about it is that after I watched this episode of The Simpsons, I thought South Park has always been my favorite show. There's always been lots of foreshadowing in South Park and whatnot. I wonder what season 10, episode 12 of South Park is. So I went and watched that episode, and of course, it's the one where Cartman can't wait for the Nintendo Wii, so he freezes himself, and then he comes back in the future, and basically atheists have taken over the world, and the future people unlock Cartman because they want to get in touch with Richard Dawkins and Mrs. Garrison, who are the ones who started the whole world to be atheist or whatever. Richard Dawkins, though, right? What are the odds? Richard Dawkins is in this episode, and I watched this episode just after I watched this episode that involves Richard Dawkins. And I wrote in here, just wanted to document it in case it comes back up later. But look at Richard Dawkins. You know, he's a huge believer in evolution that equals 1,114. So another thing that really stuck out in regards to this Family Guy episode in the Falconer is the Falcon's name. I don't know if I put it in here. The Falcon's name is Xerxes, or however you pronounce that. Xerxes. And just the other night, I was reading the book of Daniel because a week ago or something, let me find this post. So it was from January 29th. And randomly, I was doing research, whatever, thinking about all the 10-12 stuff. And I guess, it's just, there's so much to talk about. But the 10-12 stuff, there was a reason that I was looking up 10-12 stuff, and it was in regards to a message that Zachary K. Hubbard had left on one of my comments that I couldn't comment back to, or one of my video in the comments, and I couldn't comment back to, but he asked me to make a video in regards to this kid with dwarfism who was the Falcons' #1 fan and whatnot. And then he had talked about how the Falcons possibly coming up short, right? The dwarfism and whatnot, which it completely happened. But when I went and looked at this article, it said that it was updated on 10:12 in the morning or whatever, 10:12. And anyway, I just decided there was all this, Daniel stuff in Gematria. So the first one that I looked at, I figured Daniel 10:12. Let's read what that has to say. And I was mind blown when I read this. So it says, "Then he continued, 'Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them.'" Right? That's just pretty mind-blowing, right? That is set my mind to gain understanding and whatnot. So just interesting in regards to that. And if you read this whole Daniel 10, they even talk about basically what happens is Daniel has a vision, and this man in linen who is believed to be Gabriel, the angel, but it doesn't necessarily say that, but if you read up on it, that's what a lot of people believe, that it is the angel Gabriel, because later on it mentions Gabriel in the book of Daniel or whatever. But anyway, if you read through it, basically it's just talking about he's giving him this vision, and he tells him of a great war that is going to come. And in regards to 114, my uncle dying on January 14th, Pi equals 114. World War equals 114 in Gematria. Holocaust equals 114. Pearl Harbor equals 114. And, so much more. We just got out of the 114th Congress. So, I don't know. It's a 114th special to World War. Then this is talking about a great war. Possibly nothing, but just interesting in regards to what it says in 10:12 about gaining understanding and whatnot. And I'll get more into the Gabriel thing here in a second, because in this Family Guy episode with the Falcon is named Xerxes, and I noticed in Daniel 9:1 they mention Xerxes, and I thought that's pretty weird, that's weird that's the Falcon's name. I'm talking about the Falcons being in the Super Bowl. He's the father of Darius the Mede. And Darius the Mede was the king who had to put Daniel in the lion's den because of an edict that he had made, and he kind of got tricked right over. to put Daniel in the lion's den. And I even mentioned Daniel in the lion's den and all this stuff in regards to the number 114 on one of my original videos, one of my original posts about Kurt Cobain and how it connected to my uncle and Flipper and all this weird stuff. So I definitely need to look more into Xerxes in regards to the Bible. I didn't go do that. I don't know why I didn't do that before I looked at this or started making this video. But I just wanted to get the information out. There's a lot to reread and whatever else. Just interesting, you know, that it even is mentioned in the book of Daniel. Also, in regards to the Patriots, something that I overlooked was that Dan in Jewish gematria equals 45, and Daniel in simple gematria equals 45. New England equals 45. Dan in English gematria equals 114. So once again, connecting to exactly what I'm talking about. 114, super special number. So anyway, all this is in regards to this post right here from March 26th that keeps getting spammed. And it made me just want to look more into it, try to figure it out. So, I mean, just weird that all of this is coming from getting spammed on a post. And I just wanted to figure out why March 26th. What is so special about March 26th? Is there something special? And I went to Wikipedia and I just typed in March 26th to figure out if there was, you know, to see something that I possibly didn't know. And I found out March 26th is the feast day, is the synaxis of the Archangel, Angel Gabriel. And I thought, how weird. I'm getting all these comments, these trolled comments on an old video that came out on the day of I put out on the day of the Jesuit Order's anniversary. And it's about the death of Gabriel Martin Reigard. And the vision that Daniel has in the book of Daniel is in regards to the man in linen, who many people believe is actually the Archangel Gabriel. So I figured, oh, let's look up Gabriel a little bit more. You know, I don't know a whole lot about him. And if you look it up on Wikipedia, look when it says that he's mentioned. It says Gabriel is mentioned in the Old Testament and New Testaments of the Bible. He appears to the prophet Daniel, explaining Daniel's visions. And also in the Gospel of Luke, Gabriel appeared to Zechariah and the Virgin Mary. And that's all that it mentions. He appeared to Daniel and Zechariah, right? And then the Virgin Mary. So only 3 people. But think about that in regards to gematria. My name's Daniel, Zachary K. Hubbard, Zechariah, right? You know, I was making videos before I knew of his channel. I was doing a very small amount of gematria, but when I learned what he was presenting, I've been making tons of videos. The information, the patterns that I've been showing are just unbelievable. You know what I mean? So basically what I'm getting, I don't know. I have to be one of the first people who really started making videos after Zach in regards to gematria. And, I mean, that doesn't even matter, honestly, but it just seems weird, you know. I keep getting shown all this stuff between me and him. You know, even the Dolphins game, the 10-12 against Seattle, right? And how it connects to the death of my uncle. And a whole bunch of stuff was happening when I was listening to the gematria effect. And he said truth the same time that I looked at the word truth. I don't know. There's been other things. I can't think of it right now. I know Bartley even talked about how all 3 of us lived in Arizona at some point and some other stuff, you know. So, I don't know, just really weird. And it just proved my point even more so as I kept researching this, some other crazy stuff happened. And in regards to Mary, the only other person, Mary equals 5'11" in Jewish gematria, just like Saturn. But remember a while back when everybody or a bunch of people were making videos that Zach was Judas Iscariot because his name equaled 149, and then Zach talked about how, I know I have his post pulled up. So, you know, all these people were talking about how he's Judas Iscariot because of this database on gematrix.org or whatever, because he equals the same as that. And then he went on to like talk about how his real name equals 89, and his dad's name equals 89, and his mom was born September 8th, which in most parts of the world they read it as 8/9. Interesting, in regards to 89, if you read out the words 89 in gematria, it equals 116 that I've been talking about in this video. I think African American even equals 116, which is interesting just in regards to all of the race stuff, and think about Atlanta being in the Super Bowl. And last year we had the Panthers in the Super Bowl, or it was the Black Panther versus the White Bronco. Also, but the reason that September 8th is so significant is because that's the day, and he mentions this, is the day that Mary's birth was celebrated, right? So just interesting in regards to all of this and how it all connects. And 8/9, or September 8th, also the day that leaves 114 days in the year, right? Connecting to exactly what I've been talking about. And no pun intended, I didn't even mean to do that, but funny. I guess I just wanted to make a point. It's just strange. This Gabriel only talks to these three people in the Bible and whatnot, or at least that's what we're told, or whatever, that Gabriel was the man in linen. Now, what's even more interesting in regards to the man in linen, if you look that up, they assume that the man in linen is Gabriel, but they don't mention this in Wikipedia. They mention Daniel and Zechariah, because Gabriel is actually mentioned in Daniel and in Zechariah, but the man in linen is also mentioned in Ezekiel. And they don't know for sure, but if you look it up, it says that Jewish scholars believe that the man in linen is actually the angel Gabriel. And I guess the reason that I even bring this up is when you look up Gabriel, it says that there's a feast day on September 29th, right? September 29th was the day of the Hoboken train wreck that was connected to the number 114. A big day in regards to everything that I've talked about. This day is super significant, September 29th. It's even the day that leaves 93 days in the year. Again, Saturn equals 93. And Saturn, Saturn, most likely the god of the Old Testament, right? And everybody makes videos on Saturn and the Saturn worship and everything else. I guess the reason I even mention that is just because all of these weird things happening, it just makes me wonder if this is actually the reason. You want to think that it's Jesus or whatever, the true God. And how do you truly know? How do you know that it's not just something bad pretending to be something good, or vice versa, something good and whatever? How can you ever truly prove that? How? That's why I can't fully believe in anything. And possibly that is just horrible for me, and I'm gonna whatever, I don't know. I just can't get over the fact, because I cannot just give up everything and believe in something when I have so many questions. And this all started when I was a little kid, so possibly this is how it all works, possibly all of these things are interrelated since I was a little kid because of Saturn. Possibly that's what it's all about. But I remember when I was a little kid, and I always had to go to the Catholic Church and everything, and I read the Bible, because I thought, I didn't read the whole Bible, but I read the first 10 pages of the Bible, because I always wondered, it just doesn't seem to make that much sense, right? And I opened it up, and I remember reading, it says, "Let us create man in our own image." And I know lots of people have talked about this, but I remember reading this as a little kid. Let us create man in our own image. And I remember asking my teacher or whatever at REP, religious, or it was called CCD at the time, Catholic something, I can't remember what it stands for, but I asked my teacher that or whatever. whatever. And they had no idea. I'm like, why? If there's only one God, why would they say, let us create man in our own image? It just doesn't make any sense. And I never got a straight answer from that. And I've always had tons of other questions even before that. But that really opened my eyes to be like, this doesn't make sense. And so many other kids, so many other people just go on with their day and never question that whatsoever. They just believe what they're told at church. They believe that, everything in the Bible is completely true and it's all to one God, and it doesn't make any sense. To be honest, when I first started doing all of this, I was complete atheist. I've been an atheist for a very, very long time. I mean, that is completely different now. I totally know. I don't just believe. Through all of this, I know there's something so much greater going on. But I just want to make sure that I know that what I'm believing in, if I ever choose to believe in something, I want to make sure that I'm believing in something that is good and not something that is deceiving me, That's all. So that's why it's very hard for me to just give up everything and believe in something when I don't fully understand it. And that's why I am doing this. And I know I feel like I'm getting all of these signs and whatever else, but I'm telling you, I have so many questions, and there's a lot of things that still do not make sense, and I feel like I'm being deceived, and I feel like I am trying to, I feel like I'm getting, for some weird reason, I feel like these people, the Freemasons and everybody else and the Zionists who understand this knowledge that I am talking about, I feel like somehow all of a sudden they're trying to use it against me, and they're doing all this stuff to me, and somehow to make me look like a crazy person, I guess I'm just trying to say that I have to be fully convinced before I can believe in something. I know I said that a bit ago, but think about it. Think about all of the popular channels on YouTube are all about God and Jesus and everything else. If you don't do that, you're not going to get very many subscribers. Just think what they've done to the world. Think about the world. There's a church on I live in a town that has 7 churches, I think. 7 churches. Are you kidding me? You think they don't want people to believe in Jesus and they don't want people to believe in God? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There's a town of 1,000 people has 7 churches, and you go to the next town, it has at least 5 churches. And I understand the difference between, being a Christian, I guess, and going to church and believing in religion. I guess Christianity and religion are different, but how do you know that you're just not being deceived? How do you fully know that the whole purpose of all of this isn't just to get you to believe in a false God or the God they want you to believe in, How do you, I hate saying and I try not to, but it happens. But just how do you truly fully know? All of these signs are happening. What if that's all part of the plan? What if the part of the plan is to get people to become atheists because of some of this stuff, and then when they become atheists, they do all this weird stuff to them to get them to try to believe again, right? How do we know? How do we know that's not truly what's happening? How do I know I'm not being deceived? You see what I'm saying? I have a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that possibly could be going on. And most people will say, you need to get over that and you need to just believe because look at the signs. But no, think about it. How do I know that all these signs aren't because I was somehow, grew up and all these things made me think that doesn't make sense. And now all of a sudden I'm getting all these signs saying it does make sense. And that's not part of the plan. How do I know that's not part of the plan? But all of a sudden I'm supposed to give everything up and believe in something, and maybe that was just part of the plan all along, you know? That's what I'm saying. That's why I can't fully believe in anything, but what I do think is there's something crazy going on. I think there is something involved with all of this stuff that these people worship. You know, I don't know. I'm not trying to discredit anybody's thoughts. I'm not trying to discredit anybody's beliefs. I'm just saying this is what I think, you know. So, moving on. I'm sorry. I don't know. I have to get that off my chest because it's stuff like this that I need to talk about in every one of my videos, but I just hold back because I don't know how to put it to words a lot. And hopefully that makes sense, but it's a complicated issue, you know? And there I go again. Anyway, what I was talking about was that Gabriel has a feast day on 9/29. And I never told anybody this, but on January 28th, I found out that my girlfriend was pregnant. And so that's 14 days after my uncle died on the 14th day. And, you know, it's just very strange, right? It'll be my first biological kid. We have my daughter Claire, who I pretty much raised, you know, she's totally my kid, right? But it's just interesting. My uncle dies, it's like the death and then a new beginning. But the reason 9/29 stuck out was because it was the Hoboken train wreck. I talked about all this stuff leading up to it. And with 114, and my girlfriend's due date was set at 9/29, September 29th. And I thought, that is just some strange stuff. It's even 1 month, 12 days before my birthday. Doesn't mean that that's when she's going to have the kid, but it's still interesting how all of this just randomly happens after my uncle dies. I haven't worn a condom in 2 years, you know, like, I thought I was broke or something, I don't know. Got hit in the nuts when I played a show, you know. That sounds bad, but it's the truth, like, crazy. And, you know, I'm sorry if anybody didn't want to hear that or whatever, but it's just really weird to me. I never thought that could even have kids or something because it's been so long. And then now my uncle dies, and then now we're having a kid. You know, it's just really weird. And who knows? I played a show once, and I was playing guitar at a show, and I was wearing my bear outfit, and it sucked up onto my junk, and for some reason I was pulling the cord, my guitar cable, all across the stage, and literally the pointy part on the 1/4 inch, it just like came flying at me all the way across the stage. Like it was under something, and I jerked on it, and it came flying, and it hit me right in the nuts. And seriously, it hurt for like a month straight. And I almost actually went to the doctor. I never go to the doctor, but moral of the story, I just really thought that it just broke on that day or something, and obviously not. So anyway, in regards to Gabriel then, like I'm saying, this person, and they seem like a legit person, so I'm not calling people out. I'm just saying it's just strange that randomly I get a message, and this person was talking to the trolls, like telling them they're idiots, you know. So I can't imagine why this person would be a bad person, you know. I'm just documenting all of these strange coincidences. Anyway, it was on this video, Death of Gabe Rygard, X-Men, and this video I put out on September 27th of 2016, the anniversary of the Jesuit order. And ever since this person started commenting, just the last 2 days, I have got trolled messages all of a sudden again on this video. Like, can't remember what it... I'm going to look it up really quick so I can tell you exactly what they said. Alright, here's the email that I got on, I guess, yesterday, or whatever, I guess technically 2 days because it's just after midnight. But, you are a nut job, my friend. Now, how messed up is that? Considering, I'm telling you, with my girlfriend being pregnant and me, it's like they could read my mind and they know why I didn't think that that was possible. Nut job, right? And it comes up again in a second, which is in regards me and Zach. So, anyway, you, my friend, are a nut job, they say on this. I want to see. So, just wanted to show this comment, I guess, and also the fact that my video I put it out September 27th, Jesuit Orders Anniversary. This day is also interesting in regards to the fact that it leaves 95 days in the year. My name equals 95. Dan Barrett or whatever. My full name, Daniel Edward Barrett, equals 95. I don't know. I don't know what else to think, but just interesting. They even mentioned nut job. And I didn't write that in my blog post, but that's what I was thinking. And the reason I didn't write it in there because I didn't think it was appropriate. And that's the reason that I mentioned it in this video, because, I'm trying to be whatever, appropriate for everybody. I'm a lot crazier than I seem in these videos. I'm not crazy, you know what I'm saying? I shouldn't say crazy, because that's what I feel like people are trying to do to me. But I'm way more outgoing than I seem in these videos, that is for sure. But I hold back a lot because, I'm trying to relate to other people, and I don't want to offend other people by, cussing all the time and everything else. It's not that I don't cuss. I try, just whatever, I guess I'm just trying to be respectful to people, but, sometimes it just needs to be said for this example right here. Because, honestly, it's like they could read my mind was read. Like, seriously, like, the reason I made this post, and then I get a thing about nut job, right? And the whole time when I wrote this up, I was thinking what I just said about getting hit in the nuts with the pointy part of the guitar cable. And, haven't worn a condom in 2 years, and now we're having a kid after my uncle dies. It's pretty weird. It's just weird. I also told my girlfriend that I don't want any part in naming the kid just because of gematria. She doesn't do any of this whatsoever, so I told her, let's have our daughter Claire just think of names or whatever, and then we can all agree if we like it, and then of course I'm gonna look up the gematria after that to find out what it is, but I don't want to do it beforehand, and I can do it in my head too, but I'm gonna really try not to. But yeah, that's it. Oh, I know what I was getting at with this. So she already thought of names, which is funny. It's just really funny because the first name that she said was Rosie, and me and my girlfriend were like, "Wow, that's a pretty good name. If it's a girl, like, all right, we'll take Rosie." And who knows? Like I said, it's really early. I don't even know what it is. But the next day, she was writing down boy names or whatever, and the first one that she told me was Ezekiel. And I thought, that is, in regards to what I'm just talking about here, the man in linen, right? I'm talking about Daniel, the book of Daniel. I'm talking about Zechariah. And then the man in linen also shows up in the book of Ezekiel. And then the first boy name is Ezekiel that she thinks of. Like, where did she even think of Ezekiel? Out of all names in the world, Ezekiel was... I don't even think there's an Ezekiel in her kindergarten class. Like, that is just the strangest thing to think of. Ezekiel, out of all names and boy names in the world, Ezekiel. Like, I don't know. It's just weird. And Rosie is even connected to something I've mentioned with another one of the last uncle who died. He died of cancer on the 132nd day of the year. Cancer equals 132. Super connected as well. He died on the day of the Philadelphia train wreck, which has been super big into things that I've been talking about. But his wife was named, he always called her Rosie. And honestly, until I was like out of high school, I thought her name was Rosa. And I'm not even joking. And literally her real name was Kathy. And I thought her name was Rosie or Rosa. I just always thought that. And when I graduated, I found out later on that her real name was Kathy. Or, thinking back, I don't know. It might have been before I graduated. It was somewhat when I was like in my teenage years. I found out her name was Kathy and her real name wasn't Rosa. Might not have been after I graduated. It might have been like junior high or high school, but I just remember I was a little bit older, and it just blew my mind. I was like, really? I had no idea of that. So who knows? Possibly nothing, but just interesting. The first two names, boy and girl, I hear, especially Ezekiel. Like, really? I don't know. It's really weird to me. So anyway, I have this Gabriel connection. All of a sudden I'm getting comments on the death of Gabe Rygard. His real name's Gabriel Martin Rygard. And as I was writing up this post, I kind of took a little bit of a break, to rest my eyes, just whatever, gather my thoughts. I'll just sit here on my laptop, whatever. I watch TV a little bit here and there. The TV's always on. But I was typing up this post, and for some random reason, I kind of sat back and I looked up at my TV, and it was on Comedy Central. And the reason it was on Comedy Central is because my girlfriend records every episode of Futurama. That's like when she goes to bed, she puts on Futurama. She's seen every episode a billion times, but somehow still doesn't care and watches Futurama every night when she goes to bed. And anyway, Futurama had been over, but it stayed on Comedy Central. And it was the season premiere of Tosh.0. And I just watched it because, I don't know, some of the stuff's funny on there or whatever, And I was sitting there, and when I first started watching it, he was interviewing a guy named Zach, this fat guy who I guess is famous on YouTube for getting hit in the nuts. And I thought, that's so weird that like I'm thinking about this in regards to whatever, my girlfriend being pregnant, me getting hit in the nuts, this person commenting on my video, calling me a nut job, and then now I'm watching Tosh.0 with Daniel Tosh interviewing a guy named Zach, right? Gabriel, and mentioned in the Bible talking to Zechariah and Daniel, right? And Mary. And I'm thinking, that is some weird stuff. Then I just type all this up, and I look up, and Tosh.0 is on top, and Daniel Tosh talking to Zach. I'm just like, dude, that's crazy. And the episode, of course, called Nutshot Zach, And I'm thinking in my head, how in the world do they know what I am thinking while I'm writing this post up? Like, how do they know that I am thinking about getting hit in the nuts with a guitar cable? So, who knows? Just another weird coincidence, right? That just randomly happens, somehow knows what I'm thinking or something, And at the time, I was rereading the book of Daniel because I really feel like there's a super significance, and I'm supposed to read this and get clues out of it or whatever. And I noticed that if you go to Wikipedia, chapters of the book of Daniel, they have 1 through 9, and then they put chapters 10 through 12 all together, right? 10, 12, yet again, another 10, 12 reference. Daniel's final vision. I was like, interesting. Daniel 10:12, talks about understanding of truth and whatever, just before the Great War. So I wrote it in here, just before I looked at the TV, I was reading Daniel 11. And in Daniel 11, it mentions 4 kings, and the 4th one will be richer, far richer than all of the others. And I thought, interesting in regards to Donald Trump and whatnot. Donald Trump's pretty rich, right? And I looked up Donald Trump, and he's definitely the richest president ever. George Washington was the richest president ever before him. And equivalent to today, he was only made of $500 million or something. And Donald Trump's a billionaire. So he's a lot richer than any other president. Possibly nothing. I'm just throwing this out here because it said he was far richer. And it also says he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. I mean, how interesting. The character of Donald Trump. I mean, just think about everything that he resembles in the mainstream media and whatnot. Lots of people think that he's the good guy and whatnot, and he's trying to stop the global elitists and bring America back and stop the NWO, and it's just funny. He'll stir up the kingdom, stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece, right? And that's kind of like what he's in there for, is to stir up the people to fight against the government and everything else. So once again, possibly nothing, just my thoughts on it, And that's what I wrote. We'll see what happens. Just interesting. A rich president, someone who will stir up the people against the government, pretty much, But it also says, after the rich person rules, that is when a mighty king will rise up and break up the empire into 4 sections. Right? We talked a lot about the Civil War stuff and whatnot. So just interesting, Possibly it's something that comes after Donald Trump, but Donald Trump is just there to completely destroy everything, and then the next person is the one where it all falls apart or something. I don't know. And there's more to it. If you read Daniel 11, it's like a long war, all kinds of stuff. So possibly it's very far off. It has nothing to do with anything close. But who knows? I just feel like for some reason I'm being shown to read Daniel in the Bible, and it has so many interesting connections to everything that I keep talking about. Excuse me. Also, I wrote in here that I just can't believe, in regards to money and Donald Trump building the wall and Trump winning the election on November 9th, or that's when we were told that he won, the day of the anniversary of the Berlin Wall falling down. But think about how much money he has in regards to Wall Street. Who knows? Talked about the movie Wall-E before as well, and some other Wall references, but Wall Street, I cannot believe that I never put that together in my head. So then I mentioned, I guess, in this post with Monty Williams, I already talked about some of this in the 22 stuff, talked about A.M. Klein commenting on the video where I mentioned that, this is where I mentioned it, you can't see it, but I say Aubrey McClendon. So there was the 3 deaths. It was, what was that player's name? The one player's brother on the Thunder, he died in a motorcycle accident or something. Then Monty Williams' wife died, and then Aubrey McClendon, one of the owners or something of the Thunder, died. But anyway, Aubrey McClendon, AM, and somebody had mentioned in my comments how AM is 113, and then this person is the one who trolls my comment, A.M. Klein. And I mentioned how that was the day that Prince attended the game on 3/3. It was 49 days before he died. Warriors equal 49. Revelation equals 49. After the Prince video that I put out, they copyright claimed my old video about 22 Jump Street as well. And just think about all the 22s I mentioned in the very beginning of the video. 22 is a number that syncs up to Scottish Rite Freemasonry as well. 22, if you write it out as words, it equals 39, which syncs up to Tom Brady at the Super Bowl. Even on the Simpsons episode that I was talking about, where the Patriots come back, it was all about 39. They were down, what was it? They were on the 39-yard line or something. Yeah, 39-yard line. They threw it to the mascot with 10 seconds left. 10 equals 39. They had 10 points at halftime on that episode. They went 61 yards to win the game on one pass or whatever. If you write out 61, it equals 39. Or if you write out 39, I can't remember. One or the other. If you write out 39, it equals 61. Or if you write out 61, it equals 39. Can't remember what it was, and I'm not going to look it up real quick. Anyway, just know that it is connected to what I'm talking about. I'll leave a link to YouTube copyright claiming my video playlist, because there's just so much information. If you haven't been following me, you have to go back and watch all the stuff leading up to it. Otherwise, all my videos are going to be a whole day long. There's just so much info, and it's all interrelated. It's craziness. CNN, even after the death of Prince and all these weird. There was a ton of videos I made after Prince died, and how it was connected to me somewhere in weird ways. CNN came out with an article about you could see the wildfires. So I got cut off, but CNN even makes a post or a headline article about the Iowa. You could see the Canadian wildfires in Iowa, and of course I'm from Iowa, so I looked at the article, checked it out, and I thought, man, that's some weird stuff. The lady's name that they interview, her name is God Alive, like that, Godelive, God Alive, and I'm thinking that is some weird stuff, right? I'm getting all these weird coded stuff, and it's all in regards to my Prince video. I go to CNN. The headline article is about the wildfire smoke that from Canada and Iowa, and it was true. When you went outside, you couldn't even see the sun. It looked like crazy, like a blood moon almost. Like it was like weird. I don't know how to explain it. I'm sure that happened at other places as well, but CNN had an article about it. I went outside, no lie. Like you couldn't even see. You could look at directly at the sun. It didn't even hurt your eyes. So who knows? Just telling you, all the stuff I talk about, it seems to be popping up in the media just after I talk about it and whatnot. Or just something related to what I'm talking about. But moving on, so in regards to March 26th, this post that they keep spamming, for whatever reason, I get all these spams on there. I was looking through people who were born and died on March 26th. And if you've already clicked on somebody, you know, the link is the different color. And as I scroll down, I noticed this person right here, Roland Barthes. His name was highlighted, and I thought, couldn't remember where I looked up this guy from, but it was after I literally just watched the movie Birdman. So this guy was quoted in the film Birdman. And let's go through this post about Birdman, because it completely talks about what I was talking about. So, like in a previous thing, I had posted about how Zach commented on the video and asked me to look into this story right here. Meet the world's cutest Atlanta Falcons fan, a boy with dwarfism. And look, updated 10/12, and I thought, what? That's crazy, right? And his name was Wyatt Keaton. And the first thing I thought of when I saw Keaton was Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, Batman and whatnot. I've talked about Batman. And the number 86 that I felt like I was getting shown with March 26th syncs up to the Batman movie where they blow up the Super Bowl, even though I didn't think that was really going to happen, but just interesting, you know. The way they spell Keaton for this boy in the article, it equals 25 and 70, just like Falcons and Gematria, right? And I also realized Raw in, I believe, English Gematria equals 114, just like Dan and all kinds of other stuff, you know? But when I was looking through Michael Keaton stuff, I saw this movie that he was in, Birdman, right? And I thought, interesting, the reference to probably, you know, the Falcons. It's a black bird with the red cover. Birdman, talked about the Eye of Horus and Ra. And just notice, look at the cover even. I'm sure there's some type of weird code written in here. I just haven't figured it out. Birdman, the only letter that they put in lowercase is the I, right? The I stands out. He's the Birdman, right? Horus and Ra both depicted with the head of a falcon, the Birdman. The I is lowercase that stands out. The eye of the Birdman, the eye of Horus, the eye of Ra. I guarantee you that's why they did that. It's just, who knows? Maybe not, but why else would they make the eye stand out like that? It's the eye of Birdman, and the Birdman is Horus or Ra. Birdman in Gematria, Jewish Gematria, also equals 166. The number connecting to my uncle, the Flintstones, this huge number that I have talked about. You know, Twin Towers equals 166. Secret Society, I learned, equals 166. Talked about the first and the last Super Bowls in the movie Oblivion. And in the movie Oblivion, he's working on drawing 166, and that's where he said, Tom Cruise says, that the last Super Bowl ever played was, and they show 2017 in the background. In the very beginning of that movie, he even says that he works on drone, or he works as drone maintenance, and the drones watch everything. And then we had Lady Gaga, who was connected to the Eye of Horus and everything that I was talking about. And the big deal was they made the American flag out of drones. What are the odds of that, you know? Some weird stuff. And not even weird, just planned is what I should have said. Also, just the name Keaton reminds me of key, possibly nothing. Key of David, Keaton, you know? 2000, key 2000 maybe? I don't know. They do stuff like this all the time, though, you know? They use phrases and whatnot that sound like other things, and who knows? It's just something to think about. Possibly it means nothing whatsoever. I also mentioned that on this movie Moana, which I've actually watched, but I didn't watch it that in depth, but somebody pointed out that at the very end, this guy right here turns into a hawk or a falcon. It's a hawk is what it says in the description. And then he watches over the city as they start their new beginning or whatever, the new sailing tribe or whatever. Because they weren't a sailing tribe until she discovered the heart or whatever. And yeah, you got to watch the movie. But he turns into a falcon. He's a demigod to watch over him, basically. And Ra is either associated with the Falcon or the Hawk. And think about that in regards to Atlanta, the basketball team, the Hawks, football team, the Falcons, Atlantis rising, Ra, one of the first gods of Atlantis, Horus, the last god of Atlantis. And, of course, this movie also originally released November 14th. The date that I talked about in the beginning of the video in regards to Richard Dawkins, Evolution, you know, Jack Finney, Prince Charles, 318. There's also, the music was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is interesting. He's the guy who wrote Hamilton. And then the Hamilton actresses were the ones who sang America the Beautiful at the Super Bowl, and they hate Donald Trump, and they harassed Pence and whatnot. I didn't even get to finish watching this movie when I posted it. I did finish watching the movie. It's actually a pretty decent movie if you watch it. It's kind of strange, but there's so much to decode in the movie that I didn't really have time to decode, but it's almost like the movie The Number 23. They have all kinds of like coded stuff in the very beginning. It even says Abba and whatnot. Right here, I posted about this because he's looking in the mirror, and I mean, the clock in the background. It's actually 1:15 on this clock, but when you look at it in the mirrored image, it looks like it says 9 and 11, right? So, or 9 and 11. So possibly nothing, just wanted to point it out, I guess. Also, in regards to the movie Oblivion and the movie Birdman, I looked up the movie Oblivion and I tried watching it again, but I kept falling asleep. But one of the stars in the movie is Andrea Riseborough. And this movie came out March 26th, 2013. What are the odds? March 26th, the day that my post keeps getting spammed on, March 26th. It also premiered in Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's where Pope Francis is from. How interesting. The Super Bowl I talked about, super connected to the Jesuits. I'll leave links in the description, but seriously, Buenos Aires, where Pope Francis is from. This comes out on March 26th, the day that keeps getting spammed. Also notice that it came out in the United States on April 19th of 2013. This is interesting because Pope Francis became the Pope on 3/13 of the year 13. So this was, 13 days after Pope Francis became the Pope on 3/13 of 13, and April 19th is the day that Pope Benedict became the Pope. Right? Pope Benedict became the Pope on April 19th, 2005. And then he quit being the Pope in the year 2013 when Pope Francis took over. So this movie came out literally 13 days after Pope Francis became the Pope in the year 13. So who knows? But interesting in regards to the popes. Yeah, I've talked about this before, but Pope Francis became the Pope 313, or also 13/3. If you write out 300, or 300, I do that all the time, I don't know why. 600, 6, like what it says the mark of the beast is in the Bible. In gematria, that equals 133 and also 313. So how interesting, you know? Just makes me wonder. This movie, also 84 minutes long. United States of America equals 84. Jesuit equals 84. Pope Francis, supposedly the first Jesuit Pope. If you read out Pope Benedict's real name, Joseph Ratzinger. I don't know why I'm not doing this in the deal, but Joseph Ratzinger. That's his real name, Pope Benedict. 191. Just like Society of Jesus, which is the Jesuits. Can't even spell here. You know, my uncle's name equals that. He died 191 days before his birthday. Oh, who knows? Just pointing it out. Oblivion came out on this day. It's been a super important thing that's super connected to what I've been talking about. The beginning and the end. So, whatever. Just an interesting name and interesting this lady's in both of them. You know, I don't know. Just interesting that I found all of that off of noticing this lady was in both of the movies. I noticed that this little thing on my screen thing wasn't showing it. Earlier what I was showing was Pope Francis becoming the Pope on 3-13 or also 13/3. And if you write out 600, 6, it equals both of them. But for some reason my screen capture thing got smaller and I don't know how to fix it. So I don't know. It doesn't work. It just moves the whole thing now all of a sudden. But anyway, back to this March 26th stuff. And I don't know if I mentioned this in this video. It's super long. But Richard Dawkins, the guy I mentioned in the very beginning of the video, he was also born on 3/26. So what are the odds of that? This guy believes in evolution and whatnot. Born on 3/26, the day that this post I put out keeps getting spammed like crazy. It's the only post that's getting spammed like that. It's just really weird. But this Roland Barthes guy that they mentioned, man, I gotta talk quieter, but this Roland Barthes guy that they mentioned in the movie Birdman, so he died on March 26th, but what really sticks out to me is if you research more about this guy, you find out he is well known for, I don't know, I'm assuming it's semiotics. And when you read what it is the study of meaning making, the study of sign processes and meaningful communication. This includes the study of signs and sign processes, indication, designation, likeness, analogy, allegory, blah, blah, blah. That is exactly what I am doing. So what are the odds that I find this study or this type of study by following the signs and the meanings, trying to figure out the meanings of the signs, you know? And then I find out that there's actually a thing called semiotics that is exactly what I'm talking about. But if you look up any examples of what is going on here, they don't tell you anything about what I'm talking about. They talk more about basically how they can use it in advertising, like something. I mean, an example I thought of earlier, I was watching the Cleveland show trying to explain it to my girlfriend, but the Cleveland show, they would say, oh, it's related to black people because Cleveland's black, and Cleveland because of Cleveland, Ohio, and Family Guy because he came out as a spinoff of Family Guy. And they think of all these interrelated connections, and then they think of ways. Basically, they can figure out ways to manipulate it to make more people like it and whatever else, like they understand how all of these things are interrelated, and then they can use it in advertising because they can make it related to things that it isn't necessarily related to, I guess, when you look it up. So what else is interesting in Gematria is that semiotics equals 40 and 112. Atlanta Falcons equal 40. Super Bowl's played in Houston that equals 112. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting. I've never heard of this before. It even says it's closely related to the field of linguistics, which for its part studies the structure and meaning of language more specifically. Exactly what Gematria is. It's all about the language and the study of language and whatever, I guess, the coding of numbers into words that's being used. And all of this is interrelated into semiotics. How interesting that Gematria, basically what I get, when I think about it, Gematria is interrelated into semiotics, or however you pronounce it. What is going on? My trackpad all of a sudden doesn't work. Of course, it's 1:56 a.m., right? 33 equals 156. Just throwing that out there. The 156 prime, 911. Of course, it would mess up at that time. So anyway, one last thing that I want to talk about, and it is in regards to Gabriel yet again, and also the connections between Gabriel, Daniel, and Zechariah and whatnot. So I talked about how I was talking about the connections with Gabriel, Daniel, Zechariah, and then I looked up at the TV and Tosh.0 was on, and Daniel Tosh was interviewing a guy named Zach. And I thought, what are the odds of that? And it instantly made me think of Peter Tosh. And I don't know why it made me think of Peter Tosh. I think that the reason that it did make me think of Peter Tosh is because he's the only other Tosh that I can think of other than Tosh.0, Daniel Tosh. And I had just made a video in regards to, not completely, but I had mentioned Rastafari, and I talked about Bob Marley and whatever. I talked about how it connects to Samson, who was in the tribe of Dan, who supposedly killed the lion with his bare hands. I even mentioned dreadlocks. He had dreadlocks, and the dreadlocks supposedly gave him power and whatnot. So just interesting. I'm talking about all this tribe of Dan, book of Dan, whatever. Daniel the lion's den. It all keeps coming up. And then that's why I looked this guy up. I looked this guy up, but I didn't post anything about him. I just looked up Peter Tosh, and I was like, interesting. He was born on 9/11, something that's super connected. The Falcons quarterback Dan Quinn, born on 9/11. This guy even dies on October 19th, 10/19. And in numerology, they don't use the 0, so it would be a lot like 119, which is the reverse of 9/11. And I also, it's just so crazy because I never looked at Zachary K. Hubbard's blog. I never watched any of his videos yesterday when I made this post. But for some reason, I knew that this guy, there was something in particular about him. And today, when I got off work, I looked up Zach's blog just to see if there was any new big news stories that I might have missed and whatnot. Just been working a whole lot, haven't had a whole lot of time. And I looked it up, and I noticed that yesterday, the same day that I had talked about Tosh.0, and I looked up Peter Tosh, Zachary K. Hubbard made a post about Peter Tosh. How random is that he made a post about Peter Tosh? I even looked it up, and I talked about Tosh.0. I mean, just how random is that, you know? And I'm talking about the connections between Daniel and Zechariah, right? Our names. And what's interesting, he talked about the numbers 119, right? 9/11, 119. And the word Saturn in Francis-Bacon gematria equals 119, which I never realized before because I never used Francis Bacon. But basically, in Francis Bacon, it just follows the alphabetic order 1 through 26. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and so on. But once you capitalize the letters, so you use capitalized A, that would be, you would add 20, that would be 27. So capitalized B would be 28, capitalized C would be 29, and so on. And if you write out Saturn with a capital S, it equals 119. And then this guy born on 9/11 dies on whatever, 10/19, a lot like 119. Family Guy equals 119. The Patriots, you know, the episode, The Town came out 119 days before the Super Bowl. We talked about a whole lot of 119. Even in Super Bowl 33, the coach was Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn was born on January 19th, 1/19. And then Dan Quinn, the coach of the Falcons this year, was born on 9/11 or 11/9. And lots of other stuff. Talked about Dolly Parton being born on January 19th and how it connected to Whitney Houston, the Super Bowl being in Houston, Whitney Houston. Super connected to it. I'm not going to go into it, but she was in The Bodyguard. Also, you know, I Will Always Love You was the original song by Dolly Parton, not Whitney Houston. So basically, what I really wanted to point out is just the very rareness that I would think of this and research it. I didn't write it in my blog, but I did look it up. Had no idea that Zach posted on this. Absolutely random thing, you know? And then I look at it today and I'm like, what? He had posted about Peter Tosh. I looked up Peter Tosh because of Tosh.0. And the reason I looked it up was because it was connected to Daniel and Zechariah. Hopefully that makes sense. Just some weird stuff. In gematria, just a little lesson, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. Rastafari equals 93. Saturn equals 93. Bob Marley equals 93. Bob Marley died on May 11th. And Saturn in Jewish gematria equals 511. A lot like May 11th. I even wrote in here, Bob Marley dies 6 years and 4 days before Peter Tosh, and 64 is this big number in regards to Israel that's connected to Saturn. Knesset equals 93 in gematria, which is, Knesset is Israel's legislative branch, and Israel, their independence was recognized on 5/11 of 1949. It's all about Saturn. Haile Selassie, or however you say his name, the guy that started the Rastafari movement, basically, he was buried. When he died, he was buried on November 5th, which can be written as 5/11 or 11/5. In regards to 64, though, Bob Marley dies 6 years, 4 days before Peter Tosh. Israel equals 64. Thelema equals 64, and they worship the number 93. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but Synagogue of Satan equals 64. They're the false Jews who are going to rule in the end times, according to the Bible, right? So 64, do what thou wilt. That's what Thelema and whatnot believe. 64, Zion equals 64. And just think about how it all connects to being Rastafari and whatnot. They think they're the real children of Israel, the black Jesus. Talking about Israel connecting to Saturn. Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, both connecting to Saturn. Also, I found it interesting, and possibly nothing, but And I think I said this wrong before. I think I said that Peter Tosh, I think I said he was born on 9/11 and died on October 19th. He was born on October 19th and died on 9/11. So just correcting myself, I'm pretty sure I said that wrong. But Bob Marley died in the 5th month on the 11th day, and then Peter Tosh died on the 9th month on the 11th day. 5 and 9, which is the big number in regards to the super racist stuff that they do to black people. Rasta even equals 59, slave equals 59, Negro equals 59, cotton picker. I mean, I have so many examples of this all throughout history. I mean, clear back even, like Webb Du Bois and whatnot. Remember John Brown? John Brown in the Harper's Ferry raid. John Brown died at age 59 in the year 59. And supposedly, in regards to the Mandela effect and whatnot, which honestly, it's coded by the numbers, but I think that it exists because I have lots of things that don't make any sense. But supposedly, a lot of people believe that John, whatever I was talking about, John Brown was actually a black guy or whatever, and I don't ever remember that, but when you look it up, he's a white guy, so who knows? Just an interesting Mandela effect thing. And there's tons more examples, Black History Month, February is the only month that it's the short month, but it ends on the 59th day of the year normally. And a leap year, it ends on the 60th day of the year, which interesting because the super N word, the big way equals 60, the small way it equals 42. If you write out 5, F-I-V-E, it equals 42. If you write out 9, it equals 42. February, the only month that equals 42 in Gematria. It's just ridiculous. So just pointing that out, I guess. Peter Tosh even died at age 42. I'm pretty sure the band, the Wailers, equals 42 in Gematria. I also noticed that Bob Marley, if you include the end date, died 3 months, 6 days after his 36th birthday. And I mean, this happens all the time. I have documented it so many times in regards to people's deaths, like famous people's deaths at least. And still people just don't want to believe it. It happens every time you see a famous person die on CNN or whatever. It almost always syncs up this way. I mean, it is so ridiculous. It either syncs up to what their name adds up to or their age or both or what they were famous for. For example, Alan Thicke, the guy from Growing Pains, he died 9 months and 12 days after his birthday. Growing Pains equals 912. SuperBowl LI equals 912. And I have a whole video on him, and I got a bunch of flack or whatever you want to call it from that video, but it was super connected to the Super Bowl, and it is connected to exactly what I've been talking about. Remember on Wikipedia, they took away the 51st episode. It just randomly wasn't on there. We were going to the Super Bowl 51. I talked about how it was called A Star is Born and all kinds of stuff. I even talked about Kirk Cameron, and then Alan Thicke's very last TV show, filming or whatever, was with Kirk Cameron's sister, Candace Cameron, on the new Fuller House and whatnot. And it aired on Netflix, the whole season or whatever, on December 9th, which could be in 9/12, and a whole bunch of stuff. But I figured out what they were doing with Kirk Cameron. They were showing me 10/12 because he was born on October 12th. The 10/12 stuff that I keep mentioning, there's something just super important about it that I'm not seeing completely. But I mean, seriously, if you've just been following what I've been saying and what other people have been saying for the last couple of years even, you see this happen all the time. It happens with every time you read somebody on CNN that dies, it's always coded by this system. Even the Brady Bunch lady, Carol Brady, Florence Henderson, I can't remember exactly what it was, but she died like 83 days before her 83rd birthday. It never ends. It happens every single time. But in regards to Bob Marley, he died 3 months, 6 days after his 36th birthday. Haile Selassie died 36 days after his birthday. Just think about their connections in regards to Rastafari. So, one last thing that I want to end with. I talked about Thelema equals 64 like Israel. They worship 93. Talking about all these 93s in regards to Saturn. And in regards to Thelema, so this is the guy who started Thelema and whatnot, right? Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man in the world. Look when his birthday is. October 12th. 10/12, right? The big number that has been shown to me like no other. And also, he died on whatever, December 12th, which can be 1/12, or also 12/1. Revelation equals 121. My name even equals 121. Just interesting, I guess. 112, like where the Super Bowl's played. 10/12. And he also, in Thelema, he identified himself as a prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Aeon of Horus. And in Thelema, there's the 3 Aeons or whatever. Well, there's a few more, but the 3 main ones that they talk about are the Aeon of Isis, Osiris, or Cyrus, or however you say his name, and then Horus. So this guy is supposedly bringing in the Age of Horus, or whatever, the Aeon of Horus. Just how interesting. He's the 10/12 birthday. This guy's super significant. A lot of famous people talk about him. Ozzy Osbourne sings about him. He's connected to Saturn 93. The whatever founded the religion of Thelema. Here's where I talk about Kirk Cameron as well, born on 10/12. I just knew there was something super significant with it. Even Alan Thicke, right? Think about the middle names in regards to what I was talking about with my uncle and my best friend's brother and my cousin. The 51st episode of Growing Pains, it's on here now. But it totally was not on here forever on Wikipedia, and now it's back. Everyone's forgot about it, and now it's back. I also noticed Kirk Cameron in Jewish Gematria equals 318. Remember, 318 days, also 10 months, 12 days sometimes. Both these numbers super connected to a whole bunch of stuff that I've been talking about. I also pointed out in this post that the center for the Atlanta Falcons, his name is Alex Mack, and he wears number 51, and he came from Cleveland. And the Simpsons episode, The Town, that aired the same day that Tom Brady came back after Deflategate, they played Cleveland and a whole bunch more. But Alex Mack reminds me of the TV show on Nickelodeon when I was a kid called Alex Mack, right? Where she can morph into a puddle. She got hit by G161. Whatever. She has a black friend, Ray, and her sister's like really smart. I haven't watched it forever, but I remember a lot of weird details about that show. Alex Mack, even spelled the same way. But I looked up the 51st episode of this show, 51st episode, called 12 and a Half. And it just so happened to air on December 10th, which can be written 10/12. 51st episode, it was also season 3, episode 18. Fitting for everything that I talked about. I should watch this episode. I bet you there's some clues. Just haven't got around to it yet. Her best friend on the show is portrayed by Darren Love. And if you look him up, he's also the voice of Tupac on the new Straight Outta Compton movie that came out in 2015, which I talked about anyway in regards to all the race stuff that's going on. And then, they planned it so far ahead. It's just so ridiculous, and people don't realize that They got the new movie called The Great Wall coming out or whatever, and it's all about the Great Wall of China. They started filming this movie, or they started writing the story way before Donald Trump was even going to be the president or even remotely close. And now we're getting all this stuff in regards to the wall. LeBron James, that one game show called The Wall. It's just so ridiculous that people don't catch up on that thing, that people don't pick up on it. But whatever, I was one of them people years ago, I guess, like to an extent, I guess. I even just watched in the Lady Gaga video. I'm gonna leave Zach's video in the description and whatever. But in that video, he talks about the astronauts that are up in space and they've been there since like November and October or something, and they're wearing the Super Bowl shirts or jerseys of the Falcons and the Patriots. Now, like, seriously, just why do not people even question that? But so many people just go, oh well, they must have brought a bunch of jerseys up and then they decided to wear them too to celebrate after the Super Bowl. It's just the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Either they're not even really in space and they're just filming it somewhere. That's a possibility as well. But they for sure knew who was going to win the Super Bowl. It's just the stupidest thing of all time. No way they would have packed all of them jerseys just to do that. Or if that's truly what they did and they truly are in space or whatever else, then, I mean, just think about how ridiculous that is anyway. Like, just wasting that money, wasting our time, getting people associated with things that shouldn't even really matter, like sports that are rigged. And, I know that I talk a lot about sports, but it's not all about sports. The only reason I talk about sports is because I always see connections that are connected to sports. Sports are just like the easier way to explain it or something. They use sports like crazy they're all connected to media stories and everything else. I've proven this multiple times, so it's not that I even care about sports anymore. At the time of my life, yes. That was the only thing I cared about. And I always thought there was something up with it, and now there's a way to prove it. People still don't get it, but just saying. There's more important things than sports, and they always push sports on people. That's part of this astronaut thing. Even if supposedly they're really in space and supposedly they really took all these jerseys and they wasted a bunch of money to go up there, I mean, they're still emphasizing that we should only care about sports, and they're trying to, manipulate minds that sports are more important than anything else, and not worry about being a slave and going to work and eating and rinsing and repeating. But whatever, I'm just going to end the video here. Or I want to talk about this little post right here, because in regards to 913 and the number 25 with the Super Bowl, I just find it interesting. This person wrote to me about if the Falcons lose, they'll be 9-13, and they talk about the death of Tupac, and there's a Tupac movie that's going to be released on the anniversary of his birthday this year on 16/6, like 166, which is June 16th. But there's also been a Michael Jordan narrative that I've talked about forever. Like, seems like so many things are connected to Michael Jordan. And Tupac, of course, his 25th birthday, and he died at the age of 25. I think about all the 25 stuff I talked about in the beginning. But Tupac actually died on the day that the Chicago Bulls won the NBA Finals in 1996, which was Michael Jordan's the first year that he came back and won. Like, he came back in 95 on 3/18, or that's when he announced his comeback or whatever. But he didn't win the finals until the next season or whatever, 1996. So he came back in 95, and then the 95-96 season, the Chicago Bulls won again for the first game of their second three-peat. And Tupac died on the day they won that NBA Finals. And there's a lot of interesting connections to Tupac and Michael Jordan and whatnot. Tupac's mom just died this year, and she was born in Lumberton, North Carolina. That's where Michael Jordan's dad supposedly died 23 years ago on the dog days of summer, which is also the day that my uncle was born, the day that Sam Foltz died from Nebraska. Sam Foltz and Mike Sadler. My uncle was born that day. It's even, the dog star Sirius, and then the dun 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 dun, whatever, the Michael Jordan entrance, the Bulls entrance song is called Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I guess just wanted to point out, it was Tupac's 25th birthday that year. The Falcons are now 9-13 in career playoffs or whatever. And just think about Tupac in regards to Atlanta and black people, or high population of black people. Tupac Shakur and Gematria even equals 40 and 139, just like Atlanta Falcons. So I definitely think there's something more going on with the Tupac thing. I just need to think more about it. It's just really funny that Tupac is like the reason that I even really started looking into numbers and whatever else too. But I'm not going to go to that big old spiel. But just interesting that clear back in high school, and probably 99 or something, this is when I really started noticing number patterns, not necessarily gematria, but I don't know. It's just funny. Tupac is super significant, and he's the guy who really got me into all of this stuff. And then, of course, Tupac and the Outlaws and whatnot. And earlier when I mentioned, can't even remember where I posted it, Peter Tosh. For some reason, whenever I think of Peter Tosh, I always think of this album right here, Dead Prez, the Let's Get Free album, probably one of my most favorite albums of all time. Like, but they, in the song I'm an African, they even talk about Peter Tosh, and that's why it reminds me of Peter Tosh. Like, seriously, one of the best albums ever. It's funny thinking back on it now, though. Like, Tupac, super coded by the numbers, he's probably just part of it. Whatever. Or possibly whatever. I don't fully understand it. Maybe he just knew what was going on and whatever. But obviously seems like he's part of it. These guys probably part of it. All they're doing is, making people, they're trying to awake people. There's a real agenda to awake people to a certain extent. And what the exact purpose is, I don't know. But there's a real agenda that has been going on for years, but it's really ramped up a lot. They want people to be awake, and possibly that's something to do with like the Donald Trump type of president in the whatever. And like what I just said in the book of Daniel, how the rich guy comes in and tries to corrupt the people and whatever else, and get the people to go against the government and whatnot. Possibly that's what all of this has been building up to. It just seems like they're making it more and more obvious every day. And it just seems like there's a real agenda to make people awake and aware. But they're only awakening people to a certain extent, and they're not letting a lot of people see more of what is truly happening and how it's happening. I've really been trying to figure this out in my head for a long time, so I don't want to keep talking about it, but there's something bigger going on with, they want people awake, and I don't know how to put it to words, because I don't know exactly what the whole point is, but there's a definite agenda that they want. They've wanted people awake for years, even clear back to the Eustace Mullen days, and clear back in 1952 when he wrote his book, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve. He's best friends with Ezra Pound, who was best friends with the guy in the CIA. So it's totally obvious to me that there's an agenda, that they want people awake, but I can't figure out what the exact point of it all is. So I guess just decide for yourself. Maybe you can help me out. I don't know. A lot of people don't agree with that either, but it seems to me that is what it is. But running out of time, 2 seconds left. Peace.